Yeah, this is one of those things that there's always second and third order effects of telling the truth, and especially in the world when you start getting into suppositions and things that you may or may not know to be true. But in this case, this one reached the level of importance and time sensitivity. Realize this is a time sensitive thing. Also, I'd like to state upfront that appropriate authorities have been notified. This information is in their hand to include a lot more than what we can talk about here, because sources and methods are something that we protect. Now, also understand that both Basel Boz and myself are not connected to anything the government at this point, but we do still have friends inside, and we do still negotiate. We still speak with. We still share information pretty much weekly for us here in Texas with local law enforcement all the way up to state level. This one jumped way above. This one jumped way above that one, and I'm just going to give you the situation report up front, and then we can go into the discussion point, and I'll have my colleague jump in there as well. So on the evening of the 22nd of September, that would be Sunday, we got two separate reporting streams that came through, and then one of these came from Boz's side, and I'll let him explain that one. But which those reporting streams were not connected to each other. This is important to understand. When we're looking at information that comes to us, we want to make sure that what's the validity, the veracity of the information that we're getting. These were not connected. Both of these reporting streams had access of placement to information, which then corroborated once we all started talking and saying, what's going on here? And this one particular one from our side was a confidential informant that we have that works on the border. We do get information from here down in Texas all the way over to San Ysidro, California. So this one came out of the New Mexico area of operations. It's not our particular locale, but the informant was working that location, and has the ability to access and place himself into nefarious networks on the border. So when he intercepted this information that, and this is, bottom line up front, that 9 surface to air missiles of possible Iranian origin, we don't know, I don't have hands on, but surface to air missiles have crossed into the United States at a New Mexico point of entry. Now, that's going to lead us to a lot of supposition here, but we have to understand that this information was too specific not to take notice and to disseminate it. We operate on the find, fix, and finish, analyze, exploit, or expose, and then analyze these things and to disseminate. That's what we do. F3EAD. It appears that, based upon this reporting, that the identified target is the former president's Trump's plane, his airplane. And this is why it reached to the highest levels of anything that we've touched down here. Typically, we're looking at, chasing down narco terrorists or, trying to pull kids out of bad places. This one went way above and beyond. The presence, and this is the other corroboration, that there's a presence of 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 three-man teams within the country who were to receive said cargo.
Okay, we're going to keep going with this. This is probably going to be the topic of this Cigar Friday because of the weight of it. So threats that you just heard, missiles coming in, surface to air missiles coming in through the Mexico border, with a target being Trump's plane. And then you just heard there are multiple teams that are already in place. You heard that from Matt Gaetz. If you've been paying attention to my Cigar Fridays, you know that Matt Gaetz put that out there on blast, that we have assassination teams, that they are foreign in origin. And so all of this stuff seems to be coming together. This is why I said I don't trust this government to protect Donald Trump. Because as far as I am concerned, and this is just my opinion, the Biden administration is in cahoots with the Mexican cartels. You can't enrich them to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars have been flowing into the Mexican cartels through Joe Biden's open border policies. So people will say, "Oh, Stu, you can't say that because you're making it seem as though he did it on purpose." I don't know if it was on accident or not. It's immaterial to the actual fact. Are the Mexican cartels using Joe Biden's open border policy to rake in hundreds of millions of dollars? Well, if they are using Biden's open border policy, then the two of them are in cahoots. I don't give a crap if Biden knows or not. By the way, you'd have to be a moron to not know Mexican cartels. Just stop and think. Who do they have? Who does Joe Biden have at his disposal? The NSA, the CIA, the FBI, and every other intelligence agency this side of Texas. But you're going to tell me that no one in any of those agencies said, "Hey, Mr. President, the Mexican cartels are making hundreds of millions of dollars in all sorts of ungodly actions due to your border." You mean to tell me you think that never crossed the White House's desk? Please. So when you listen to this, I already have to calm myself down. When you're listening to this, just keep that in mind. That all of this was made possible from a wide open border that Joe Biden absolutely refused to close. That goes for the surface-to-air missiles, the cartels, and every other degenerate that has come across that border.
Is it in their hands? It's unknown at this time to me. Okay. But with regard to this ordinance, and this is important to understand when you're talking about a technique or tactic or practice of the enemy that is inside this country, the three teams that we're talking about. The suspected type of surface-to-air missile has a range of up to 5 kilometers with a maximum flight height of 4,000 feet. And its speed can reach up to 850 miles per hour. That's over Mach 2 point something, almost Mach 3, with a 1.4 kilogram HE, high explosive warhead. So these are looking at planes that are flying low and slow or on a takeoff or a landing. All right, so that's where we would see this type of attack being taken place. I've worked with surface-to-air missile before, so has Boz, and we understand that this is not for something to fly up in the stratosphere. This is for something on low and slow, helicopter, or something that is just taking off or on approach. More concerning about this particular ordinance is that the sophistication of its laser targeting system. It has a 360-degree arc on it, which is it's heat seeking. Okay, but it is infrared and it's heat seeking. The time from what we call march to firing is about 10 seconds. That means a dude takes it out of a car, takes it out of a pack. He's got 10 seconds to set it up and fire this thing off. Could easily reach anything that's on approach or on takeoff.
Okay. So stop and think. This is not something that you would have to wait for 30 minutes. Just like he just said, you pull it out, set it up, shoot it off. Just like that. So, and once again, these are slow moving targets. These missiles specifically are those more slow moving targets, helicopters or jumbo jets. I'm not I'm not sure, because I don't know anything about ordnances and ammunition and all that kind of, I don't know anything. I just know human nature. I know that the Mexican cartels have a vested interest in Donald Trump not regaining the White House. I know that those three-letter agencies have a vested interest in Donald Trump not regaining the White House. Because now Donald Trump has a higher level of sophistication with regard to how Washington, D.C. works. His first time, he didn't know. Now he does. And so this would be done really quick. Also, and I reported on this, I believe, right after the second shooter released the letter that the DOJ told the world about, that there's a $150,000 bounty on Trump's head. And Merrick Garland thought that that was a good idea to put out there for the public to know about. But remember, somehow, some way, the second would-be assassin had Trump's itinerary. I'm going to get to that a little bit later. But this machine is so, they are so desperate right now. We are 38 days out for a massive change in direction. I mean, a massive change in the direction of this country and, by extension, the world. Now, keep this in mind as we're going through this video. Iran. Just keep that in mind. And I'm not going to bury the lead because I think that this is probably one of the biggest priming of the pump that's out there right now. You're going to be hearing a lot about Iran and Iran's attempt to take out Trump. Like he just said, we don't know if these missiles are out of Iran or not. And at this point, who really cares where they're out of? But the whole notion of Iran is big right now. Now, some people are pontificating about an October surprise. What do we mean by that? Well, the Hunter Biden laptop story was an October surprise. And they had to, squash that, which the FBI did. They pretended it wasn't real. They pretended it was Russia. They lied to the American people. They lied to everyone about it. That's a October surprise. And what people are thinking now, and by the way, this sounds so outlandish. It really does. But they will, 25th Amendment, Joe Biden, install Kamala and go to war with Iran after something like this is pulled off. And so even if they don't hit their target, i.e. Trump, they will embroil us in a war that will be very difficult to extract ourselves from.
That kind of tells you what it is. Now, here's our analytic considerations. To get 9 surface-to-air missiles across the United States border at a point of entry would require some insider help. There's no way that you're coming across with this type of ordnance at a point of entry, and this was in New Mexico. The specifics are still being held. We talked to our law enforcement and friends and said we'll hang on to some of the information because they're investigating. The only organization that we know of this kind in that area of operations is the Sinaloa cartel. There's a lot of things going on there. I'm going to suggest that if you look a little history on that, I'm not going to go into it a lot here, but we've got a lot of stuff going with Guzman, this guy that's being held in the country, extradition, things like that. There are potentials for other things that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But our analysis indicates that we cannot rule out assistance or direction from upper level management. And that goes all the way to our intelligence community and the Department of Justice. I don't have that. I don't have the specifics on that, but I do know that that is being investigated. Since the right answer for them, for us, this is a happenstance finding, but these are things that we cannot hide. We cannot keep to ourselves. For them, their duty is to find, fix, and finish, expose, analyze, and disseminate this type of information. This is time sensitive. It cannot be mulled over any longer. Boz and myself and our team all woke up every morning now going, we can't let this happen on our watch. It doesn't matter the risk. We're willing to take the risk. We're willing to take the hard hits because this kind of stuff, this is like the kid with his finger in the dike. This is the type of stuff. This is a wake up criteria, we call it. Boss, you got to know. Understand this. The 45 team, the Trump team knows about this. He tweeted about it. It's already been out on open source intelligence. That being, another medium that came out. It was on, Health Ranger. He put out some information on this. So people are getting the information. It always leaks. And Boz will corroborate this. It always leaks. Not from us, but from other places. People hear about it. Hey, guess what? So we've got to get the pressure on our ICDOJ legislators. Look, I am almost convinced that there are legislators on Capitol Hill that are involved in this. Okay. And that's scary to say. And it's hard to say on this medium, but I don't know their names, but they will be found out.
Now, once you start doing the types of things like transporting surface-to-air missiles across a national border, you got to know there are someone in the intelligence community who knows about it. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that, right? I mean, surface-to-air missiles, heat-seeking. Somehow, some way, coming across our border. They know about it. Someone knows about it. Now, at this point, who knows? The problem becomes Americans, really, it's not even Americans, it's just humans never look at tragedy as being able to happen. Look, when your, kid gets in the car and you're driving somewhere and they say you're going to Disneyland or whatever, God forbid you go to Disneyland, but you're going somewhere and a semi hits you. Tragedy strikes. What we want to believe is that was random, and oftentimes it is. But things like this, 9/11, Pearl Harbor, those things happen. So imagine hearing a heat-seeking missile takes out Trump's plane with him on it. And I'm going to get to that later. See, right at this point you think, well, this is kind of fantastical. Imagine had I said, on 9/10, hey man, I think a bunch of jumbo jets are going to fly into a building. You'd have me committed. Sounds ridiculous. It sounds insane. Hey, we're not even in the war. Why in the world would Japan target us? Is it that's my understanding, because that's really what brought us in. See, this stuff that happens, and I may have my history, wonky, but my point is, when things like this happen, they're a shock to the system. But since we're human beings, we revert back. So now, 9/11 was way back when. Trade Center has already been rebuilt and everything seems to be going perfectly fine. It was a tragedy and everyone recalibrates and okay, everything's back to normal. Not because we're a corrupt group of people in America, but because we're human beings. That's how humans work. And so something like this is so fantastical, it sounds insane. But Pearl Harbor would have sounded insane just one day prior. The same goes for 9/11. Just keep that in mind. I've got a lot more to get into here.
Because there's money that's been transferred to cartels to push something through a point of entry in New Mexico to allow for 9 surface-to-air missiles to make it into our country with the intended target of the former president.
Did you hear that? So that the money has already exchanged hands. That's what makes it time sensitive. The money has already changed hands. Once the deal's already been done. Now it's just a waiting game. When? Where? I'm going to get to that.
Either way, action is imperative that we get left to bang on this. We get ahead of this and understand this too. And I'll speak for myself, and I'm sure Boz will corroborate this. And I'm gonna take the thunder here. I can assure you, me nor my team are suicidal. So we're going to go ahead and go there, because this type of stuff is what gets people buried 6 foot under.
Now, some of you are probably asking, and rightfully so, who are these guys? That's a good question. And I think it would be derelict for me to not go over that. So here we go.
We see government, as many people in America do, for what it is in America. It's broken and corrupt. And they're weaponizing 3-letter agencies who have lost sight of everything that's American, choosing to compromise and foster basically a globalist or deep state agenda. But within our circle, we have a robust intelligence network of agents that have access, and many times better than all of the 3-letter agencies combined.
Now, there was a time in this country where a journalist would have a source, and that source was used as a confidant. There was a time in this country where a journalist would have someone inside the CIA or the FBI or some sort of, gang, or the police use it. Confidential informants. We do this all the time. Well, these guys are from that community. The 3-letter agencies. And kind of like Alex Jones, you still have friends, patriots that are actually still within, that don't hate the U.S. Constitution. They don't hate America. They want us to thrive. And these are those guys.
Now, unlike most, if not all of those three-letter agencies, Tommy, they want to tell the American people what to think. We're here to teach you how to think. And most, if not all of those three-letter agencies were put in place to keep the American people safe. But as a weaponized institution driven by the deep state agenda, it is clearly not the case. It's just the opposite of that. So we're speaking today to the American people who have a right to know the truth and a right to live their lives without being set up for failure. And on this day, and Pete knows it as well, on this day, 26 September 2024, all of that changes. As veterans and patriots, we took an oath to defend the Constitution against enemies foreign and domestic. And I do not mind saying that up until this time, and I think Pete will agree with me, most has been speculation as to the fate of the nation as we continue to carry the burden of that kind of socialist democratic party, and even perhaps some people on the other side of the aisle that wish to destroy what we fought so hard to protect. On our watch, that will not happen. Today, we want to let the American people know how close we are to that destruction and remind we the people that this country and its history and the values embedded in the Constitution will not be tossed aside without a fight to the bloody end.
Will not be tossed aside. Those values. I'm not gonna. I don't want to go too far into this, but I need to perhaps reiterate, because the question always comes up: how could God possibly bless a nation, as we say He has, when we had the institution of slavery? It's impossible. It's impossible. Well, the people that think it's impossible for God to bless a nation that has slavery as an institution really don't understand God. They have no idea who God is, and I'm talking specifically about the biblical God. They don't have a clue as to the biblical God. And so I want to make this as succinct as possible for you. The word perfection can only be used describing God, because He is the only thing in existence that is perfect and absolute. Now, when God sees a nation who writes a document that says all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, and the sum of them are the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When God sees that, He knows, oh, hey, they've put out a goal here. Understand, no one here is perfect. No country is perfect. The only entity in this universe is God. So when He sees people saying, well, we're going to point to that perfection, well, God takes notice. When God sees that, He takes notice. So, wow. Well, okay. And a lot of that blessing came with the Civil War. Getting rid of Jim Crowism. A lot of this nation was founded, I believe, by God Himself. That we are the only nation on the planet where you can come here and become an American. You don't have to be a certain color. You don't have to be a certain nationality. You don't have to even have a certain kind of faith. And the reason God would bless a country like this is because that one document we call the U.S. Constitution, that's what set this country apart. That it was done methodically. If you go take a look at the Federalist Papers, looking at all of the 13 colonies, figuring out, okay, where are we on this? Where are we on that? Where are we with God? And then understanding that they all signed a statement of faith that Jesus was the Christ. You want to know why I'm so proud to be an American? It's really not the freedoms we're allowed. It's that our heritage, that we put God first. We've set up a goal. That's why people, well, but we had slavery. We set up a goal. We had an aim. That aim was to be perfect, knowing full well we'll never get there. Why? Because the only entity in this universe that is perfection is God. That's why I will drap myself in the red, white, and blue proudly, because I understand the history here. And what he is saying, we're not going to let you throw that away. We're not going to let you throw that away.
So as Pete's delivering this and we talk about this information, this is exactly what we're doing. Both Pete and our associates have seen so much through our career get stuck and hidden from the American people, as if they know what the people should know and should not know, as if they are babysitting the American public. And quite honestly, there are people that are in positions of authority that, shouldn't even be there, to be honest.
Do you guys remember Rachel Maddow? President Trump was making a speech. They wouldn't play it on MSNBC. And Rachel says, we have to cut away because he's going to lie so much. And if he says something newsworthy, well, we'll let you know. We'll let you know. That's what he's talking about. Anyone at this point who doesn't understand that the MSNBC is an arm of the CIA and the surveillance state, man, are you not paying attention?
Honest with you. So this information, which Pete's telling you, it's critical. I mean, think about it. Look, even if it's not, and we know it was directed at it's Trump, for the former president. We know that. But let's say they're still floating around as Americans getting on your plane every single day to fly across the country. What if your plane is the one that gets hit by one of these missiles? What if your family goes down in a ball of fire because a bad actor used one of these surface-to-air missiles that should have never come across the border in the first place? Had it been tight enough, had we had security in place, it probably never would have happened, because these are the things we have prevented in the past. These are the things under President Trump's watch that we stopped from happening, and now it's happening. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and Pete can come get me out of jail on it. The fact that this administration has allowed this to happen, the fact now this national security issue will affect any and all Americans in our country, that is treason. That is dereliction of duty, and this president that is in there and his entire staff should be removed immediately. The last time I saw stuff like this, it was intentional and it was by design. Everybody can go, well, it's just stupidity. It is not stupidity. It is by design. And take a look at all the bad actors that have come across and with the illegal aliens that have terrorist ties. Talk about all the terrorists that are in the country now that we haven't even picked up yet. Do you think there's a possibility that those cells are ready to receive those weapons and do damage here? Yeah, I think that's the case. We know that from our experience.
Like I said, during, I believe it was my last Cigar Friday, Matt Gaetz blew the lid off that you have 3 teams here, 5, but 3 specifically to get Trump. And so once they get this ordinance, because you already have them here, that's already been confirmed. What some people call kill teams. They're already here. How did they get here? Well, we have an open border. We have a wide open border, and any and everyone can come here. Over 100 different nationals have come across that border. And those teams that Matt Gaetz blew the lid off and said, hey, they're already here. And so now you hear that there are these ordinances that came across the same border. Just keep all that stuff in mind. Okay. Man, we are on the brink. I mean, I so, we're on the brink. And so keep all of that stuff in mind, what we just went over. Okay, you can review it yourself. You can rewind and go back to the parts that if you don't get it all. Here's the takeaway from this first segment here. Number 1, the cartels have already been paid. 2, allegedly surface to air missiles have already been transported across this border. 3, you already have kill teams in place to receive those ordinances. That's your biggest takeaway. And 4, and most importantly, the target is your president, Donald Trump. I told you this is going to continue. Dan Bongino told you it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. It won't stop. And by the way, November 5th won't stop it. Now, look at this. From the New York Times, threats to Trump may prompt changes in travel plans and event types. Secret Service officials have advised altering routines and rethinking rally locations after threats from Iran and 2 assassination attempts. Here's my question for you. That one headline, look at that headline. What jumps out at you? What jumps out at you? What one thing comes to mind? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind, how the hell do I even know that he's changing his routine? That should be under wraps. How the hell is it plastered on the front page of the New York Times? You shouldn't know that he's changing a routine. Those are things that give you the clearest indication it is coming from the inside. And let's take a look at this. Donald Trump's advisors are considering whether to modify his travel after threats to his life from Iran and two assassination attempts, according to several people briefed on the matter, a shift that could affect the way the Republican nominee campaigns in the race's final stretch. In other words, you know what? I know you want to go to a rally in Wisconsin, and I know you want to go to some of these battleground states, but we don't think you can go there anymore. What word did I tell you to look for? Iran. You gotta have when you do an operation like this, you gotta have a fall guy. You gotta have primed the people so that they know, wow, it was probably Iran, just like the New York Times said, just like the Washington Post said, just like Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid said. And we all know now that it's coming from several different places in Iran, giving you the pretense to go to war with them. They're just priming the pump to keep Iran in the back of your mind. So if something like, God forbid, Trump's plane is hit by a surface-to-air heat-seeking missile, your first thing, where do you think the CIA is going to point? Among the discussions are what events can be secured, as well as the possibility that we might travel less on his own Trump-branded plane, according to two people briefed on the discussions. Why are they telling the New York Times? How did the New York Times come across this information that Trump may start, changing his routine? Secret Service officials had previously suggested to Mr. Trump's team that it considered additional changes to his travel plans and campaign routines after two assassination attempts against him in roughly 2 months. Mr. Trump and his team are also facing an assassination threat from Iran as revenge for ordering the killing of the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani in early 2020, while Iran also has led hacking attempts on campaign officials. They have led hacking attempts on campaign officials' emails. Two federal agents, intelligence officials, briefed Mr. Trump on Tuesday about the threats from Iran, his campaign said. So the government, the same government that refuses to protect Donald Trump, is telling him, oh, a lot of this is coming from Iran, just so you're aware. An official with the Office of Director of National Intelligence, an umbrella entity that helps coordinate the work of the nation's intelligence agencies, acknowledged the briefing, but declined on Tuesday and Wednesday to comment on the substance. Well, they don't have to. That's called cover. You already put it out there. These people are sick. Here, do you guys remember hearing about the weapons of mass destruction? The weapons of mass destruction. Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. They've got weapons of mass destruction. Well, guess what Dick Cheney did? Dick Cheney leaks some intelligence to one of these newspapers. I forget if it's the New York Times or the Washington Post. I think it was the Times. The New York Times, after not corroborating the story, prints it anyway. Once the story is printed, The same story that Dick Cheney leaked to the press. Well, guess what Cheney used as corroboration for Iraq having weapons of mass destruction? He goes on the Sunday morning programs and says, well, we just had a story in the New York Times. You mean the story that you fed them? And your sons and daughters are placed in harm's way. These people are sick. A spokesperson for the National Security Council, Sean Zabit, condemned Iran for its threats and said the government treated it as a national and homeland security matter of the highest priority. He said the government had warned Iran publicly and privately to stop this activity and face severe consequences. That's called priming the pump. That's called priming the pump. Remember what I said? And I don't know that this is true. It sounds so fantastical, God, that they 25th Amendment Biden, they install, really just due to succession, Kamala, and of course, she declares war on Iran. And just like that, because the second you do that, Russia's involved. The second you do that, China's involved. I mean, it accelerates extremely fast. As an example of what some travel could look like, once again, how do you know about that? Why are you telling anyone about that? Why in the world did Merrick Garland release a letter that puts a bounty on Trump's head? As an example of what some travel could look like, the Trump team used multiple planes. Yes, because that's what you want to tell people. Right? The people who came across Biden's open border, you want to make sure that they understand, well, there are multiple planes now being used. That's what you want to put in the New York Times. You want to tell everyone. Yes, he's changing his plans. There are multiple planes now. Just so that the would-be assassins are fully aware. Thank goodness we have more than one surface-to-air missile. An example of what some travel could look like, the Trump team used multiple planes to get the candidate and his team to an event site in North Carolina on Wednesday, according to a person briefed on the matter. According to a person briefed on the matter. According to a person briefed on the matter. It's coming from the inside. Now, I saw this, and this is what alerted me to and led me to the opening video. Laura Logan, now she's a bona fide journalist, for those of you who don't know. Urgent. According to an informant in New Mexico, Trump's plane is the next target for assassination. 9 heat-seeking surface-to-air missiles have been smuggled into the U.S. for this purpose, and there are 3 kill teams already inside the country. Matt Gaetz corroborated that. Trump has been informed so that the U.S. intel agencies and other authorities Money has been transferred to a cartel to push this over the border. These people are concerned and vicious. Oh, I'm sorry. Are cornered and vicious. They will stop at nothing. More to come. They will stop at nothing. Now, what does all of this smack of? I mean, all of it. The assassination attempts, Iran, the surface-to-air missiles, the more attempts on Trump's life. What does any of this, what does all of this kind of point to? Kamala not being elected. Like I've told you, and again, it's just my sixth sense, she's not electable. I can't tell you how many times I see black women on TikTok trashing her. It's not just one. I mean, it's everywhere. Like a ton of black people going, no, honey, no. But for those of you who don't know, and Democrats know it, it only takes 15 to 20% of what we call the black vote to make sure Democrats never win another national election again. And they see that happening. That's why it was so important that Donald Trump be painted as a racist. That's why it was so important. Because they have to, they know how emotional black people get when they hear the word racist. We just lose our mind. We believe whatever's coming out. If they say that Jesus was a racist, did you know that Jesus was a racist? Black people leave church. Oh, we can't do that anymore. We can't praise this man. He was a supremacist. Really? From the Middle East? That's what they tried to do. By the way, they tried to do that. Yeah. And guys, you can look this up. Go ahead, look it up. I'm sure it's somewhere on YouTube. I don't have it pulled up. Billy Graham, the great evangelist, with 20,000 people in attendance to one of his meetings, said point blank, Jesus ain't white. Despite what Michelangelo would paint him, he did not come from Switzerland. If you are a Bible scholar, if you've actually been studying the Bible, you know Jesus, Christianity is not the white man's religion. But that's what they tried to do. To convince, well, if you really want to know God, you got to go back to your own roots. Nothing could be further from the truth. He was born in the Middle East. For Billy Graham tells 20,000, vast majority of whom were white, that this is not the white man's religion and Jesus ain't white. Why do you think he would do that? And people just flocked to get born again. Because the truth makes you free. I know a lot of people say, well, as the Bible says, the truth will set you free. That's not what the Bible says. Maybe some translations may say that. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible says truth will make you free. It'll make you free. That's what truth does. When truth rears its head, it makes you bend a knee. Because truth by its very nature is narrow-minded. By its very nature, truth discriminates. That's what truth does. It makes you see reality. And so Trump responded to this saying, the big threats on my life by Iran. The entire U.S. military is watching and waiting. Moves are already made by Iran that didn't work out, but they will try again. So they're saying that there was another attempt made on Trump's life. Of course, the intelligence community is blaming Iran. Not a good situation for anyone. I'm surrounded by more men, guns, and weapons than I have ever seen before. Thank you to Congress for unanimously approving far more money for Secret Service. 0 no votes, strictly bipartisan. Really? Did Benny Thompson vote yes? Because he was the one that wanted to get rid of your Secret Service. Wow, I wonder what changed his mind. Wow. You know that, right? Yeah, a congressman. The chairman for the January 6th Select Committee thought it was a good idea to get rid of Trump's Secret Service. Yeah, he has to be out there on his own. That's what he thought. I love to talk to him about his yes vote. Nice to see Republicans and Democrats get together on something. An attack on a former president is a death wish for the attacker. Exclamation point. Guys, your country is under severe attack right now. Nothing that is going to happen, and whatever is really going to happen, like the big stuff, probably going to happen before November 5th. That's why those guys kept saying it was a time-sensitive issue. And I want to go back to what hold on a second, that Lauren said. According to an informant in New Mexico. She's actually a real journalist. Trump's plane is the next target for assassination. 9. Stop and just let's piece this through. 9. Heat-seeking surface-to-air missiles have been smuggled into the U.S. for this purpose. 9. How many kill teams did Matt Gaetz say are foreign in nature and here to get Trump? 3. 3. 9 heat-seeking surface-to-air missiles. So each team doesn't just get 1. Each team gets 3. Just in case you're not putting that together. These types of, 9 here, 3 kill teams, the Those guys that you were just listening to at the beginning of this video, they were telling you they're getting this information from multiple sources that are not connected with one another. I'd love to tell you that our government is above board, that they're not corrupt, that these three-letter agencies are really doing God's work. They were there to protect you, and now they are not here to protect you. Now they are protecting themselves at your expense, on your dime. This kind of stuff to me, man, this kind of stuff just bugs me. It should bug you as well. Right? This should really piss you off. So once again, I don't know if Iran's behind it. I don't know. I don't know if you're being primed to believe that it is Iran. I mean, imagine telling a Trump supporter that Iran was responsible for the assassination of your candidate. What would that do? What would that do to the electorate? All of a sudden, Kamala going after Iran would make perfect sense. You would have to get behind her. Don't you support our troops? All right, guys, if those of you who would like to know what cigar I'm smoking, this is the back-to-back. This is what we'll call typically a double Corona. It's close to that anyway, because it's a Gigante. It's 7 by like 70. I mean, this is a huge cigar. Look at it. Holy mackerel, just look at it. Jeez. This is something. And this is from, as you can see here, from and it's a wonderful smoke. For those of you who don't know, there are several different things you can do to actually cut, to open up your draw. You can use a traditional cutter. Some use, their two blades to use to open it up, or you can use the scissors. There's something that they're two scissors kind of, and you clip it. Or you can use what I use, the bullet. And the bullet is more consistent, I think, and it makes the drawing consistent. And I don't know if you can see this. You see that hole there? Well, that's a bullet cut. And it makes it really, really, your cuts will always be consistent. It will always be the same. But this is, again, this is, the umpteenth time I've smoked this during a Cigar Friday. So you already know what I think about this. I mean, look at it. I mean, holy mackerel, will you look at this thing? It's a beast. All right, that's it for now. If you like this video, smash that like button and subscribe. And if you're following me on Rumble, please press that follow button. Pray for your president. Pray for your country. Until the next time, God bless.